This episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast is brought to you by Nomadicare. Now, personally, I love Nomadicare. I've used Nomadicare, and I recommend the company to all new travelers. What Nomadicare does is it takes the fear out of getting set up with a bad recruiter, which is the biggest fear that you have jumping into this journey. So they sit down, they interview recruiters, they vet them, get them on a list, and then provide them to you as a free service, as a free recruiter matchmaking service in order to get you started on your journey. Now, usually you only get 2 recruiters going through Nomadicare, but being a listener of the show, you can get 3. So this is how it's going to work. You go to nomadicare.com/Dylan. You will get set up with 3 recruiters to be on your dream team, as well as a guide to get you started on your journey.
Hey Nomad, this is Dylan, and I'll be coming at you from Thailand and Bali. But welcome to a series of blogs that have helped me along my journeys, along getting started and being a medical traveler. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dylan Callier, and thank you for joining another episode of the Bloggers Edition, where I'm sharing all the blogs that have impacted me and that I thought would be great to bring to the travelers as I am away on my big milestone adventure. And this one is one by The Traveling Traveler by Kuhn. I have quite a bit of blogs from hers that I like to talk about. And one is, again, her titles are so enticing. A dependent generation of travelers. And so this is a special one for me. And I think it relates a lot to those other bloggers out there or persons who are telling stories about all these cool opportunities that we have as travelers, and making sure that we're not instilling fear, that we're giving education, but we're not instilling fear, and that you can absolutely do this. People have done it for a very long time with minimal information. So the goal is to get enough information and to not be overwhelmed and freak yourself out before you make that first jump. So if you're listening to this, this is your first one, it's absolutely worth it. It is vulnerable. There is this anxiousness and this excitement and this fear that goes into it. And that's part of it. And that's part of that feeling. And you get to like really sit in that. And, I remember the drive to my first contract, getting in my car. It was sleeting outside. It was snowing real hard. I packed my car in, not everything fit, had to take it back out, put it all in, finally fit, put my 2 hands on the steering wheel, and here I go. And I remember feeling like, what am I doing? I'm leaving this permanent job that I actually really, really enjoyed. I'm leaving grandma. I'm leaving the nephews. I'm leaving my sisters. I'm leaving my parents. I'm leaving my friends. It was that feeling, which even though I'd been planning for it for 3 years at that point, it's still there, that anxiousness, that excitement, that fear. And so that is all normal. So if you're going through that right now, just know it's normal. Reach out. You can reach out on the New Medical Nomads Facebook group. Let me know if you are making that big jump, that big leap, and then we can all connect with you and give you some support, but 100% normal. So with this one, I wanted to talk about a dependent generation of travelers. So Kuhn. When I started traveling as a healthcare professional, I just did it. I took advice from others who had traveled in the past, made judgment calls, and went out into the unknown. The journey has been filled with ups and downs. In my first year of traveling, I had 2 contracts canceled. I lost thousands of dollars from ending short-term leases early. I had no money savings. I used my money to buy things like gold jewelry and brand name shoes instead of putting it into savings. I knew what it meant for a bank account to be in the red. I ended up living on a friend's sofa and out of my car for a while, waiting for a contract. To be a good traveler, you got to live out of your car at some point. I learned that some recruiters will lie to you and say anything that you want to hear. Others will be honest. Assignments will test my limits, and I learned how to negotiate and stand up for myself and my patients. During tax season, I did my own taxes. I called TurboTax for assistance, filing multi-state returns. 2 years later, I got a $7 bill from my home state IRS because I underpaid by a couple of dollars. Still not sure how messed up that one up. Sent in a check and decided to pay a professional to do my taxes from then on. I came home after only 4 months on the road. I felt like I had failed. Yet 8 years later, here I am. I learned from my mistakes and I kept going. I am seeing a disturbing trend in the market. A trend in which travelers are becoming so dependent on knowledge and preparation that it hinders them from actually going out and living their dream. Some spend too much time researching logistics. Some are overwhelmed with anxiety. Others spend so much time obsessing over what is the right or the best thing to do that they end up doing nothing. There is a desire to find the best company, the best recruiter, the best assignment, the best pay, the best benefits, the best apartments. But what does that even mean? And what is the best? There is a sense of having to know everything and being prepared for everything. A great quote that you listeners might like is, "Imperfect action will always beat perfect inaction." So making sure that you're not being anxious and that the fear of knowledge and preparation is not keeping you from doing what you want to do what you want to live, and this awesome opportunity that we have as a traveler and all the experiences and the dreams that we get to live. Taking a step off of the philosopher's chair and actually doing it. Again, the hardest thing to do is just that first step. Once you do the first contract, it gets much easier. Once you fill out all the skills checklists and get all the paperwork in to that first company, it gets easier. And the energy to start is always going to be greater than the energy to keep going. And so take a step off the philosopher's chair. If you were one that's been thinking about this like I was for 3 years and didn't do it, I was still a student at the time, but I did a lot of research, and the amount of time I spent reading blogs and researching probably greater than a lot of the actionable hours that I had to put towards actually being a traveler. And so make sure that you're not frozen in fear by knowledge. Make sure that you are taking actions. If you need that accountability, have someone. If you've been sitting on this for a while, tell somebody that you're close to, say, I am going to travel by this date, and hold me accountable to it, and then figure out a consequence. Maybe they, post something on social media and shame you, or maybe you owe money. That's a big motivator for me, is if I owe money. Something like that to hold you accountable and to make you take that first step. I'm so thankful for the friends that I have to challenge me, to push me, to hold me accountable. And that's how this podcast got started, by having somebody say, no, you're not going to do it just once a month or every 2 weeks. Like, you're going to do it every week, and you're going to show up. And so I am so thankful for those relationships, and want you guys to do the same so that you don't miss out on this opportunity. Because the longer that you don't travel, the longer that you don't do something, the more likely it is that you won't do it. I was very aware of that when I took the permanent position out of school. I knew the longer I stuck around, the less likely it would be that I would take that first step. So the longer you don't do something, the longer you're not going to do something. Sit on that for a little bit in your car ride, wherever you're heading. Or if you're watching on the YouTube network, sitting at home, eating ramen, whatever you're doing tonight. A sense of dependence. I admit to being a part of this. In creating forums and resources and communities, I have helped to create this increased dependence in the traveling community. So now what? In the ever-changing world of travel, you have to go with the flow. If you want to do it, go out and do it. Things are not going to be perfect, but that is what life is and what travel is all about. It is about rolling with the punches and experiencing new things. A failure one day could lead to a success another. Life is about the journey. If you are looking for the next episode of the New Medical Nomads podcast, you can find it on New Medical Nomads podcast Facebook page. If you want the early access to these episodes, you can join on YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes. We're there pretty much anywhere that you want to listen to your podcast. That's where I'm at. And for those who are engaging, thank you so much to you guys for the reviews, the subscriptions, the hearts, the likes, all the comments, for those that share the posts, for those that reach out to me directly. All the engagement allows more people to see this, and it ultimately allows us to help more individuals getting started with their travel journey. But just enough to get started. Don't be afraid to go out there and do it. Don't be frozen or in suspension of not knowing enough. Just know enough. If you're listening to the show, if you're a consistent listener, you already know 80 to 90% more of the travelers out there. So if you were consistent, you have your tax home stuff figured out, you got a good dream team that you're working with recruiters, and you have a game plan of what it's going to look like to start. You know what a good clinic is. You know the questions to ask. That's all you need. That's all you need. You'll figure the rest out on your own, and then you can stay tuned to The Traveling Traveler, or you can stay tuned on the podcast, on this show, and then you can have safe travels.